welcome everyone to today's committee meeting. We're going to start with personnel. We looked and there is no public comment, so we will go straight into our agenda for this evening. First, we're going to be reviewing the benefits renewal that Tara will go over with us.
Sure. So we have Jim Pine with us tonight. He is employed by Conrad Siegel, and he is our benefits administrator, and he's going to walk through the benefits renewals.
Sure. Thanks, Tara.
Sure.
As Tara said, my name is Jim Pine. I'm a benefit consultant and partner at Conrad Siegel. Just want to thank the district for their partnership and their trust in our firm. One of the first things that we really wanted to do for you here was just kind of give you a little bit of background on the information that we're going to ask for on approval for tonight on two of the renewals, the stop loss renewal and the dental renewal for 24-25. So if you look at the slide that's projected up here, this is really kind of a summary of a market check that we did on your behalf for stop loss coverage. There's a lot of information up on the slide. I won't go through it all in exasperating detail, but what I can tell you is looking at the left side, you can kind of see the current policy that's in place for the 23-24 fiscal year with approximately $790,000 in annualized premium. And what this stop loss policy is set up to do for you is to basically protect you against any individuals on your health plan who have claims in excess of $225,000 in a given plan year. So what you currently have in place, you're paying approximately $790,000 annually to have that protection. The carrier that you're working with is Nationwide Insurance. There's an MGU in place, RMTS, who has partnered with them to deliver this renewal to you. And you can see on the right side, basically there's two different offers from RMTS and Nationwide that we're showing. There was an initial firm offer that they made in late May, and then a revised final firm offer that was made here in early June. And while that process was happening, we also went out to other carriers out in the stop loss marketplace to kind of do a high level market check just to see if the rates and the plan that you had in place were competitive. I'll quickly just comment out to the right, carrier 1, carrier 2, and carrier 3, you can see declined to quote. All had basically taken a look at the current premiums that you were paying based on your stop loss coverage. They looked at your population, they looked at the health plan claims that you've had over the last couple of years, and they either said, I'm declining to quote because I cannot be competitive with where the rates are now under the current carrier, or they basically put out rates that were clearly uncompetitive with where things are now. So from a market standpoint, certainly feel that the offer you have from RMTS and Nationwide is competitive, it's strong. What I want to address though is just what they're offering here is kind of their firm offers for 24-25. And you can see, just to highlight a couple items as you go down the RMTS and Nationwide charts there, the coverage type, again, this includes medical and prescription drug claims for all members on your health plan. It's done on a 12-15 basis, which I'll cover on a next slide to go into a little bit more detail. But it's at a level of $225,000, which means any claims above $225,000 essentially are reimbursed to the district by the stop loss insurance carrier. The first offer from RMTS basically had about a 4.8% rate increase, which is about a $38,000 change you can see there about halfway down that chart. But there were also two individuals in your plan that they lasered as part of stop loss. And I wanted to take a little time here just to explain. When you have individuals on your plan who are expected to have high costs, who've had high costs in prior years, who the stop loss carrier expects to have high costs in future years, they sometimes laser those individuals, meaning they're either going to give them a higher limit than what you currently have in place for the rest of your population, or they completely uncap them and don't give them a limit at all. And in the first iteration of what RMTS gave to you, you can see they lasered two individuals at a level of $350,000, which means they were not at the same threshold as that $225,000 stop loss threshold you have for everyone else on the plan. They have their own specific higher rate before which the carrier would start paying claims back to you as a district. So throughout the process, again, even though we didn't really have good marketplace leverage from other carriers. We did go back, did some negotiations with our MTS, and basically came to a final firm renewal that you can see kind of in the middle of our chart here, that basically lowered the premium rates that you pay on an annual basis. They took them down from a 4.8% increase down to a 2.5% increase. That was a savings about $18,000 for that. But even probably more importantly here, they did agree to go back and at least lessen or revise the stop loss thresholds on those two lasered claimants, where they said instead of lasering them or giving them their own specific limit of $350,000, they brought them down to $325,000. So again, it's not the whole way down to the $225,000 that everyone else is, but if those two individuals were truly going to have $350,000 or $400,000 in claims next year, it means that now there's $50,000 in savings that you achieve by having those lasers updated from $350,000 down to $325,000.
So isn't that really a big increase in our total cost? Because the rates are the same, but now we have to pay another $200,000 potentially. $200,000.
You're right. So it was notable because, like I said, the max liability piece at the bottom of the page here probably best describes this. Those lasers, you don't know if they're going to hit or not. Maybe one does, one doesn't. Maybe both do. Then what we're showing on that bottom line, that max liability, that essentially takes your premium and then assumes that any individuals who are lasered are going to hit those limits. So you're right. So that max liability was truly just equal to the $790,000 this year. It jumps up to a 1.01 million for next year. So you're right. If those two individuals hit, that is a potential increase of 28% on the stop loss. If they don't hit at all, or if they don't even pass the $225,000 threshold, it's a 2.5. So
Why did they add that this year?
Sorry, would you say?
They never had it before?
So you're right, they didn't have it in the current policy. I think they looked at the risk of these two claimants and basically said, we feel that we need to laser them. I'll say there are options where you can go back and say, well, we want them to stay at 225. They would basically take that amount and load it into the premiums anyway. Yep, they're gonna shift the money around on you. So by taking a little bit of that laser risk, you at least have the benefit if those individuals don't have the high claims this year.
How does that work in the budget?
It is within our health insurance rates, all our programs. Yeah,
Because you have to allot for
we allot for
potentially
that.
Yeah, typically when we look at the budget, we'll always suggest some type of, sensitivity testing to say, okay, if it was 0, we'd look at it here, but let's assume worst case scenario, put that number there. That goes into account when we look at that testing that we do. Any other questions on the kind of the stop loss basics background or the RFP process before I touch on the next slide where we'll cover just the timing piece? Sorry, go ahead.
So they aren't allowed to laser any new people until a renewal, right?
Correct.
Like they
Yep.
can't have a
Once you
year.
exactly. Once you sign the renewal, you're locked in for the 12 months, and that's kind of how the contract takes place. So if all of a sudden at July 1st, you had somebody go into the hospital and they knew they were going to be $1 million claimant, they can't change the limits for that individual right then and there. It's just these individuals who they believe are going to be at risk again next year.
And they decide that based on kind of a pattern, right?
Historical
So-
claim information typically, and I think they'll typically look at the specific information. I know for one of these individuals, they've been a high claimant, I think 2 prior years, so they're anticipating it'll continue again. For another high claimant, I think there was a condition they expected to potentially persist into next year and see those high claims again. I'll say sometimes with this type of coverage, we might see with prescription drug, if someone goes on a prescription drug that has, $800,000 a year in expense, it's an extreme example, but it does happen. That's when you might see those lasers come into play. Typically, what we would recommend here is when we look forward and really try to negotiate stronger offers in the future, we do like to have provisions where they don't allow no new laser provisions going forward, or they give you a rate cap as well. Unfortunately, we didn't quite have the leverage this year just because no one else was really competitive with the current offer. But I think in a future year, that's really what you'd want to try to have in place, a provision to prevent those future lasers just in case they reoccur.
And then on average, how much money do we get back?
So typically, you'll look at that and you'll say, okay, if I'm gonna spend $790,000 this year, am I getting the $790,000 back?
Wasn't that hopeful, but.
Yeah, it never quite works out that way. So
Yeah.
often you'll see there'll be years when you'll have 200,000 or 300,000, and then you might have one year where you get well over the 790. You have a lot more variance in the high claims, and what we've seen, at least with a lot of our large groups, we see a lot more of the $1 million claims or the $2 million claims potentially. I was talking to Tara a little bit earlier. We saw that preemie baby that was in a NICU for 30 weeks, for instance, and it was a $1.2 million claim there. So when you really look at stop loss, you're not necessarily protecting just against the $250,000 claims. The real impact and the real value of it comes when you have those sizable $1 million plus claims, which unfortunately are more and more common nowadays in healthcare.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so the next exhibit here, we're still on stop loss, but I wanted to address one item because this is another pattern that we've kind of seen recently and that we do want to address with you as a district because we've seen it come up for some of our other groups. And it has to do with kind of the basis on how your stop loss runs. And it's a little bit of a complicated concept to explain, but when you see the basis kind of at the top of the chart, you can see that 12/15 you have in place. And the easiest way to kind of describe how the basis works is that starting July 1st, 2024, when you renew, it means any claim that's incurred in the 12 months that follow July 1st, 2024, and paid in the 15 months that follow July 1st, 2024. So it's any claim that's going to be incurred in the next fiscal year, and then any claim that's paid next fiscal year plus 3 additional months. One thing that we've seen happen a lot more recently with a lot of our groups has been some of these proliferation of these high claimants who might be in the hospital for, again, several months at once, or have really complicated, complex procedures done where there's a lot of kind of back and forth between the insurer and the provider in terms of billing and making sure everything's corrected, where you might not get a final paid billed claim until 6, 8, 10 months after the individual maybe leaves the hospital or is done with their treatment. So what we believe kind of you have in place right now, that 12/15 policy, there is some exposure to what could be a very high potential claimant that happens kind of out in the run out. So if I give you an example, what you have in place today, the policy you have in place, again, it's what's incurred during these 12 months and essentially what's paid during the 15. So the pay date ends September 30th, 2024. Someone went into the hospital today and was in there for 3 months, and they were in there till mid-September. And then all of a sudden, there were some surgeries, things like that, and there were codes and bills going back and forth between the provider and the hospital. The claim might not get paid till after September 30th. And if it's someone who's been in the hospital for several months at a time, it could be a claim that approaches that large $1 million claim that we're talking about. If the claim ultimately isn't paid until after September 30th in that example, then the district has to bear the full cost of that claim. It's not covered by the stop loss policy.
But then, I mean, if it's a building issue, it has nothing to do with us.
And you're right. I mean, it's certainly the biggest issue really that we see is providers that kind of take their time or bill incorrect codes. It's the insurance company, the Independence Blue Cross, who goes back and forth or drags their feet with things. We can hold their feet to the fire if we know there's a big claim that's out there that needs to get paid by September 30th. And again, if that happened this year, that's what we would do. But because we've seen this occur so often with other groups where, again, some of these claimants themselves can just be in the hospital for 5 or 6 months that could push past September 30th. We typically recommend that you have a longer run out period just to protect yourself. Now, obviously, there's an additional cost to that. What we have on the far right here is a policy that's on a 12/18 basis. So this basically says that any claims that are incurred next plan year, starting 7/1 and going through 6/30/2024, but then that are paid starting 7/1/24, going out 18 months, the whole way to 12/31/2025. So it kind of gives you an extra 3 months out in that run out period in which, claims will either be potentially winding down, individuals coming out of the hospital, the carriers and the providers kind of finishing up their end of billing and processing the claims. I'll say we've seen at least one claim for your district in particular over the last year that has had that kind of life cycle where the billing went out well beyond the 15-month mark. And it was a situation where I think because of the timing, it didn't really impact you here. But if it was just a weird timing situation where the claim started at the end of the plan year, like here in June, then it could have really been detrimental to the district. So again, typically here, what I would recommend is moving to that 12-18 just to give yourself a little bit more protection. Again, the cost differential versus the 12-15 policy you have in place ends up being about $19,000 annually. But I'll say the large claims that potentially are going to be impacted by this change, they're the ones that, again, are $500,000 plus type claims that you want to make sure you're not on the wrong side.
Can I understand the time to the end of the year, June?
Yep.
Somebody goes in the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and you only have 3 months then?
Yeah, typically.
Not 15 months from when they go in.
You're right. So yeah, it really is starting, and the incurred date really starts the day someone goes in the hospital. And in that type of situation, if there's a serious medical issue where someone goes in today, for instance, and we know they're going to be in for 6 months, we might go to Independence Blue Cross and say, look, can you stop this first set of bills right on September 30th,
Yeah, really?
just so we can at least have that piece covered, knowing that we're not going to be able to get coverage for what happens after September 30th. But even really absent that, you could have situations where bills and codes go back and forth. On the one issue we worked on, I think it took several months for something to get resolved from a claim provider standpoint. So, and again, unfortunately, because of the nature of health insurance right now, you do have more and more of these high claims that kind of drag on longer and longer.
So just so I'm understanding, it's not just
Sure.
when they bill us, it's also just the fact that someone's still in the hospital, even though, but it started during that
Yeah,
year.
exactly. So
So even
incurred-
if they billed like
they could bill the day they get out of the
August,
hospital.
like even if they billed
Right.
monthly, they're like, well,
Yep.
we're not gonna pay for anything beyond September.
Yeah, right. So typically, if a claim is large enough, it's gonna go through several reviews at Independence Blue Cross. They're gonna make sure they're
Yeah.
looking at everything before they pay a large claim like that. But you're right, if someone went in today in June and even, walked out in August, we'd still be waiting for that claim to get paid by September 30th. And again, we do everything we could to push it, but I think giving yourself the extra 3 months does make a big difference.
You guys are good. It's not that much. Still season forever.
Yeah.
That's
Don't
a-
get sick to that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Make sure everything's okay at the end of
It's
June.
like get sick in June right now. But that's not right, because it's a school district, so if anyone's having some sort of procedure, the time off or something, they're gonna do it in the summer. If something goes wrong.
Mhm.
Interesting.
So again, that's kind of the high-level review. Again, we feel that the offer from RMTS Nationwide is certainly competitive and has been so for you. But obviously, we probably recommend going with that alternative offer with the 12-18 basis, just so you can protect yourself a little bit more on the back
Not much more. What you end up with,
end.
So it really doesn't restart if they're just like worsening? So say you go in for a heart procedure,
Mhm.
you code on the table, and now and then you need another procedure because it starts with the day you enter the
It really,
hospital.
they typically bundle services so that the day
Yeah.
someone goes in, that's kind of the starting date. And again, I think if a situation arose where we really needed to push Independence Blue Cross on how they build it, I think we could have them separated out somewhat and maybe build the procedures separately. It's what we would do if we found ourselves in this situation in a couple months. But I'll say for like a NICU child that we just saw with that $1.2 million claim I was talking about, it truly was just one claim line
Yeah.
where it was the individual was in the NICU, the baby was there for 6 months, and it was one claim for $1 million basically. So.
Do you watch that, or do you?
We get reports from Independence Blue Cross that'll tell us who's inpatient, like on a regular basis. So we will know if there are any issues like that kind of leading up to the end of this policy. But again, if someone's in there and there's nothing we can really do about it, the best we can kind of do is just go back to Independence and say, can you at least break up the billing here so we can realize some of the benefit in the stop loss. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any more questions? All right, thank you so much. Thanks. we'll go on to,
Do you want to do the dental?
Dental.
Sorry, yeah.
Sure.
So, yeah, sorry, but wait, there's more. So the dental's pretty straightforward here, and I'll just very briefly hit this. It isn't as complex. It's the stop loss. Right now, you self-fund your dental, so you're paying the claims that individuals have when they go to see their providers, the dentists, and you're paying an ASO fee, an administrative services only fee to Delta Dental, who is providing the insurance to the members. You can see here when you're self-funded, again, since you're paying your own claims, you really don't negotiate that piece of the renewal. The negotiation truly just is the ASO fee that you're paying, and it's on a per employee per month basis for them to administer your claims, administer the network, answer and service member calls, things like that. And right now, you have a policy in place through the DVC, the Delaware Valley Consortium, which is comprised of 16 school districts, 1,000 contracts. You're in a large group purchasing contract right now, so you're in a really good spot with that. The renewal basically is increasing from $4.35 per employee per month to $4.57 per employee per month. So that ASO fee is going up 5%, but when we look at it versus where we think your total costs will be on dental for next year, you can see your claim costs we expect to be around the range of $600,000. So overall, we anticipate about a 2% increase to overall dental expenses that include this 5% increase to your ASO fee. So again, feel that this offer is competitive because it's what this whole consortium is getting on your behalf. For the standalone groups that I work with that have Delta, they don't have a rate that's as good as this. One of the things we are looking at here, though, is I know the district's heard some feedback from employees, members. As you can imagine, the dental world right now, there's a lot of dentists who are facing rising costs and other marketplace pressures. So a lot of them are dropping insurance right now, and in particular Delta, who hasn't really increased their allowances to providers over the last couple of years. So we did an analysis, looked at your claims in particular, and saw that out of your top 200 providers that members are using, 53 of those providers, 53 of those dentists are not contracted with Delta. They're out of network. And of those 53, about 20 of them have left in the last year. So we see this as a little bit of a pain point. It might be a kind of a market swing right now. What we would encourage you to look at here is to renew with Delta for 1 year under the terms of the DVC, but then go out next year at this time to do a kind of a market check, RFP, just to see if there are any other kind of provider networks that are well suited for your members or cost situations that are as well. Okay. So again, that one's pretty straightforward. And then the only other thing that I was going to touch on, I think there's one more handout coming up on the COBRA rates. I just wanted to hit on a couple quick points here on the COBRA rates. These are increasing for 24, 25. We did an actuarial calculation for what we would project your rates out to be. I know they've been kind of steady, I think, for a number of years now, but we are finally seeing a little bit of the catch up in where your claims have been and what's happening out in the marketplace to justify moving these up a little bit more. So we are recommending an increase on the COBRA rates. Again, I think from a high level, when we step back, this really just impacts your individuals that are on COBRA or the retirees. The funding rates that the employees pay, that the premium shares are all based off of, those are going to stay the same as they've been, but we are going to look at them kind of this time next year just to make sure they make sense as well. We've seen a lot of big cost drivers out in the market for our groups over the last 12 months, including the high claimants that you've seen on your plan. Many of you probably know about what's going on with the diabetic and weight loss drugs out in the marketplace right now. A lot of employer plans have them. They're especially costly, and there's different programs that vendors use to kind of manage those, but they're really what's driving a lot of prescription drug costs right now. So we're looking at those certainly in the next 12 months. And then just continuing to monitor other insurer and health system provider negotiations over that time, just to make sure we can kind of give a good estimate, to Sean and the business team with where we anticipate costs going over the next 12 months and then the years beyond that as well. Any other questions on either the COBRA rates or some of the budget projections?
These will be the board meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, for approval.
very good. Thank you so much.
That's it for me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Next, we have the 24-25 benefits premiums.
So these are the premiums that Jim was just referring to. Sean and I have met and talked through them. We would like to keep them the same, and then next year we'll reevaluate to whether or not there needs to be an increase.
So this is what you have on here.
The
Same
premiums.
as what it was.
Yes, the premiums have been the same for about 6 years, 7 years.
It's helpful to put that in, so we'll look at it. I didn't know if it was an increase or not, so just in the future.
All right. Next then is the ESS substitute renewal contract.
Okay. So we have been with ESS for about 14 years. It's been a while, and we would like to recommend to renew for a 1-year contract. There is not a rate increase with ESS. Our rates would stay the same. So our recommendation is a year renewal with ESS.
And they're doing fine.
They're doing wonderful.
Okay.
Our fill rate for our teachers is 89%. You really can't ask for a lot more than that. It's a great fill rate, actually.
Good.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No?
All right, perfect. Next is then the summer personnel appointments.
So we are asking the board to provide Mr. Barrios with the authority to appoint qualified candidates throughout the summer from our June board meeting until our August board meeting, so that we can provide letter of assurance to the candidates that we would like to hire that they will be approved at the August board meeting.
Non-cabinet related.
Yes.
Not unless any cabinet.
No. I just want that.
Just check.
So this would be teachers.
It would be
administrative,
teachers.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's-
Yep, support staff.
Yeah.
So do we get an email about that, or is this just all on the superintendent?
This would be all on the superintendent, but in all seriousness, if we did have, principal leave or anything like that, the board would be completely moved in with an email or some type of session. And probably be part of the interview process, depending on the level of position. But this is for, paraprofessionals, administrative assistants, teachers, and then we would have a retroactive approval at the August board meeting. But this would be, ensure that a qualified candidate could notify their employer, and so they could be emancipated after a whole.
How does that work in a normal month during the year? Do we have to, do they get the letter after the approval by the
Mhm.
board? So they
Yes.
have to wait up to a month?
Yes, so after the board meeting, they receive their board letter.
So we're doing
after
this
their
is
approval.
through July, we're getting.
There have been times where we've sent weekend board agendas if there's someone that we need to start prior to the board meeting. And then that's when we would send those weekend board agendas.
All right, we'll move on to job description updates.
Okay. So we are going to be talking through some of our HR job descriptions. I have Donna with me tonight. And we are going to start with the clerk receptionist position. We have realigned some of the department to make the positions more efficient. So the first one is the clerk receptionist position. As you can see, we've added some tasks to the job description. Some of these tasks were part of the position when I started in the district, but the job description had not been updated. It is also now a full-time PESPA position, so that is new since the job description was last updated. It has been full-time in PESPA bargaining unit for a year. It was budgeted for prior to my arrival, and then when I started in the district, that's when the position became a full-time position. So it was previously a part-time receptionist position, and that receptionist position is down at the front desk of the administration building. Yes.
And this is a position that's full right now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Can't change your ads.
Just a job description.
So this is stuff that they can do at the desk while, so you added some.
We did. We looked at the previous tasks that were required of that job and what is confidential information that could be done from an HR lens down here at the reception desk, and what would need to be done upstairs from that confidentiality piece.
Is this coming from somebody else's job description?
So we did adjust some of those jobs. We looked at each aspect of HR and then each position to determine what tasks align best with the position. So there were some of these tasks that were, yes, on another role, and then we were kind of shifting to make it more streamlined.
Is there a cost savings associated with this? Cost-
Saving.
There is not a
No.
cost
So
savings.
it's a little more efficiency, but not enough.
So this is the receptionist position. Does anyone have questions? So the next position is the recruiting secretary to the Department of Human Resources. So when we look at the hiring aspect, there's the recruitment side of it, and then there's the onboarding side. So we took some of the tasks that were with our onboarding secretary and created this recruitment secretary position. So previously we had an onboarding secretary for PESPA, we had an onboarding secretary for PEA miscellaneous employees. There were two individuals both handling onboarding and recruiting, and we transitioned all recruitment to one person and all onboarding to one person. We have started attending a lot more job fairs as well. So the recruitment side of it has ramped up a little bit from what it used to be. So we were able to place that onto this person's job description. Questions?
You know how many jobs that are open that are not filled versus what's already approved? Do you track that at all?
Yes. Yeah. I don't have the number off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But
I'm just curious how we're doing as
Mhm.
opposed to if you approved it, can't fill it, that's a detriment.
So typically the jobs that are harder to fill I see as being support staff versus our teaching positions. We've had a number of applicants for all of our teaching positions. There's certain hard to fill teaching positions, but the majority we've been doing very well with the applicant pool, especially being able to attend the recruitment fairs. It's been very successful for us.
Yes. So,
Absolutely. Okay, so the next one is the onboarding secretary. Again, this is just streamlining the process. So once we hire these new employees into the district, they would meet with the onboarding secretary. They'll walk through all that onboarding paperwork and really follow through until they're into the building. And even from the time that they're in the building, following up, checking on them, seeing how things are going, and being able to keep in touch with them throughout that first year in the district. Any questions? The next job description I'm going to look at is the benefits specialist. So this is one that we did make some adjustments to because we looked at ways that we could streamline workers' comp, benefits enrollment, open enrollment. One of the things that we were able to put in place this year, thanks to the help of Jim and his team, is Streamlink portal. So that is open enrollment. It's anyone who signs up for their new benefits when they come into the districts. It's a platform that we use. And that's something that Nicole oversees as the benefits specialist in the district. As well as we transitioned workers' comp to the benefits specialist. That's a benefit to our employees, and we felt that it aligned more with this position. As well as we transitioned a lot of the ESS protocols to this position as well. When you think about ESS substitutes, we're talking about employees that are taking time off of work, which aligns with the benefits specialist position. Leave of absence when a teacher's out on leave of absence, and we're looking to have subs come in and fill those roles. So we did transition some items to this person's job description. And then the last job description is the confidential administrative assistant. And there are just a few updates that are on the job description, as well as we changed some of the language. Previously, this role oversaw a lot more of the workers' comp. Now she assists with workers' comp a little bit more. But there weren't a lot of changes to this
Not
job
really.
description.
It had been updated pretty much before Jackie was here, so it's just a couple things really.
Any questions?
Thank you so much, Tara, for
Thank
all of
you.
that. So that's it for the Personnel Committee. Our next Personnel Committee is scheduled, the date is to be determined. Next is Facilities. Any public comment?
Nope.
Based on- Sorry. Yeah. We'll be right there.
We'll be right back.
Sorry about that.
We're on? Very good. Thank you very much. This is the Penrith School District Facilities Committee meeting. We don't have any public comment, so we're going to slide right into number one in our category of site logic. And Melissa,
Thank you, Mr. Cormack, appreciate that. Hello, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to take a minute to reintroduce myself to the committee. My name is Melissa Colstock. I'm the Director of Deliverables with SiteLogic. I'm here with Jeffrey Harris. He is a Senior Development Engineer. And we'll be talking about your facilities tonight. We will be focusing on the 2024 summer projects that recently have been kicked off. And then we will also discuss some owner requested change orders associated with those projects, as well as some 2023 projects. We have some credit change orders to discuss as well. The last point of our discussion is just to update you a little bit on the district-wide facility assessment that we're currently engaged with. So as we look at our 2024 projects, a lot of excitement over at Gross Elementary School. So this is a kitchen renovation, and like any renovation, it looks worse before it looks better, as you can see by the photos. So we were able to facilitate this through coordination with Kelly and his team, and also the staff there. In the mid-April, we were able to set up a temporary serving line within the cafeteria so we could completely take over the kitchen and begin the renovations. These renovations were occurring on second shift, and you can see there was a lot of demolition. Right now, ceilings came out, some of the walls came down, the floors were ripped up, and we're currently installing some of the plumbing and the electrical to facilitate a lot of the new kitchen equipment that will be reinstalled in the space. So this work will continue through this month, and once the floor is put back together, we can start addressing some of the finishes within the space. Okay, and we are on schedule with this project. The next project that's actually kicking off this week is here at the high school, middle school campus. So this is the final phase of the massive paving projects that we've been engaged with on this campus. What you're seeing is what we're looking at. So we have the main right here, high school campus parking, as well as district support center here, and then the access drives here and here. So not a lot has been going on except for a lot of coordination with contractors. We have some coordination to do with the staff that's currently utilizing the district support center, and we'll make sure that the contractors and the on-site staff are coordinated to make sure that operations can run smoothly and no one will be impeded one way or the other. One of the contracts that we're looking for approval is for the testing agency that is associated with the asphalt testing for the paving projects. So solicitations were received by these 5 contractors, and David Blackmore provided the lowest solicitation for these services. This was for $34,000, $34,095, and it's going to be a recommendation for approval. They will be providing testing of the asphalt, concrete, any of the materials testing on site throughout the course of the project. As we look at other ancillary projects for 2024 in the summer, 2 have come up. So the first is Barker & Barker, who is the prime contractor for the paving. The owner had requested a change order for the application of a crack treatment and seal top coat for the bus lane, which is this orange highlight here. So Blooming Glen to the main access drive into the high school. It's in pretty good condition, it just needs a little bit of love. And they had submitted a cost for $25,275. So you will see that change order come through. And this is a way to kind of make sure all of the asphalt services on this campus are relatively within the same age range. And in the future will be much easier and more consistent to maintain. The second is also a prime contractor change order requested through Barker & Barker for the dumpster pad that you can see here. So you can see this very small concrete pad that this one dumpster is sitting on. It causes issues when there's two. So this is, the change order is to essentially remove this, expand it to kind of what you're seeing here to accommodate both dumpsters, and it will provide a lot of ease for accessibility and probably a lot fewer headaches for Kelly whenever it has to be picked up.
Yeah, it's both were requested by me. The first one, like Melissa has described, that's one of the newer sections of paving on this campus, but we're at the end of finishing all the asphalt, and to let this section of pavement that's probably 10 years old start to deteriorate doesn't make sense, so an application of crack sealing and seal coat makes perfect sense. The dumpster location, they can't fit side by side, so it's a conflict for the vendor to even pick them up. There's not enough room side by side unless we expand that pad. So while we're doing all this work, it just makes sense to put this complementary project in place.
Okay. The next scope of work would be through the Guaranteed Energy Savings Agreement the district has also with SiteLogic. And this is additional work at the district support center. And the district had requested a price to extend the current security system to ensure coverage at the bus parking area. And that is in association, this is a new parking that was installed last summer. And because it is new, there is currently no security camera. So we'll take the existing security camera system, most likely installed within this grass island, and then we will have coverage of all of the new spaces here, and then Callie will have 100% visibility of the parking lot. In addition to that, the district had also requested a price to remove and replace the bus engine block heaters, bollards, within this island here. So we have provided a price for him to do that, as well as, unfortunately it's not shown on here, but to replace the current site lighting at the front parking lot with LED lighting. So the cost to provide those services to the district is $469,000. This work is scheduled to occur within coordination of the current paving projects that are also going on the site, so we'll make sure that, again, one is not impeding the other.
What's your recommendation?
So currently, as late as today, details on this were just developed. Honestly, need a little bit more time to look at it. They are capturing the concept of what we're looking for. This is really intended to be captured in the bid, but it wasn't fully developed to get there, so we're proposing the GISA Amendment 10 to finalize this based on timing. There's a need for this work, but we just need to decide, is this the right time to do it?
Well, could we do part of it? Like, if we're paving, I know there's time, you don't want to dig more. What part of that has,
There are options, and I've asked the current people on site, can we get conduit in the ground? And I just got this information today as well. We could get through allowances, through the approved bid, we could have conduit put in the ground if we decide to defer this. That could be done. We need to make a decision tomorrow, because they are actively milling and doing that parking lot now. So if we're considering deferring this project, we definitely want to get the conduit in the ground so we don't have to dig up asphalt.
Right.
And the price I got for the allowances is $6,800 to get all the underground infrastructure across the parking lot.
And if we defer, then we have to wait till next year to add it.
Right, all the cameras and the block heaters, all those things. They're currently in a state of disrepair. They're still functional, but we don't want to replace the concrete and have the rusted out block heaters. So it's a decision for the board. Do we want to do this sooner or later? Do you wanna take it as a GISA project, a future time you wanna bid it out? It's how do we wanna procure this? There's an opportunity to do it now, or do we defer it? We can certainly get by for a period of time and get the infrastructure in ground if the board wants to defer.
It's important to get the infrastructure.
Right, we don't wanna be big, we don't wanna cost ourselves a lot more. If we defer this, we're gonna spend a lot more. I mean, why is this a Giza? Or just because of the rush, or?
Timing, and that's what was, the scope wasn't captured in time to do the bid.
Right, so we don't have time to do that.
Right, there's not time to get it done. They are milling, we need, if we're gonna do the infrastructure underground, one way or the other, it's either GISA or use the allowance to get the parking lot in a state that doesn't have to get cut up.
Okay, well, that's, we
New
have,
asphalt's going down probably next week.
what do you think?
I would say we'd wanna make sure we put in the conduit.
Yeah, that's
I mean, to me, that would be the smartest thing we could do. And then wait until a year, year and a half, whatever time frame necessary to put the, the rest of the infrastructure.
If we bid it out versus the Giza, we're probably gonna be less. That's where we're getting, or incur more costs. If we do all the pre-stuff, is there still stuff you have to rip up again?
Yeah, in addition to that, you would have to,
Do you have to?
yeah, you would have to be careful, but then if it was going to be bid out, you would have to get later, or if you defer it for later, that's certainly a decision that you would make, but you would have to understand that you would be paying for remobilization of all of the contractors to then come back on site, in addition to performing the work. So that in itself is also an additional cost that sometimes isn't always considered.
Look at the block heater, they're gonna be on-site arranged for people who.
So they are in place, but they're failing. They're towers that are this big. So we could get by another year with what's there. But like Melissa said, part of the things that we would need to decide, we either get a credit back from Barker & Barker for not doing the concrete work as one option. Another option is defer them, pay them to remobilize to come back to do the concrete, or have another party do the concrete, along with coordination for electrical.
The savings on that change orders is not what we would expect. Right?
Not likely. So if there's pros and cons both ways, it's, I guess the short version of this is, do you wanna go with the GISA project and expedite it? Or do you wanna take it down further and bid it and get market price at that time?
I'm not a fan of Giza. There's a lot of hidden costs and we don't really know what's going on.
I don't disagree with you, but it's a timing issue. Do you wanna get the infrastructure in place? Would that be cheaper in the long run? Having that in place and then we go for our lighting and
When you say infrastructure, you mean the conduit?
Right, that's the
Definitely.
$6,800 we can do
60.
tomorrow.
Well, we definitely, I agree with that. I just don't want to do the whole thing. But it's even then doing that versus the cost. Because we really don't know what $468,000
So one question for site logic, there's several things in GISA 10. Can we do one part of this, or is it all or nothing for the GISA work?
No, the reason I broke up the ENs that I did in the schedule I shared with you, Kelly, was so that you could pick a piece.
Okay.
It's not lumped together, you can pick, just do the LED, just do the security, just do the bollards, whatever you prefer, that's how it's broken out in that summary table.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, you have until a week from now to
Yeah.
make a decision one way or the other. But honestly, if we're gonna go with just the conduit, I need to know tonight.
Yeah. Well, why is that?
Because
If
they
if that
are,
conduit has to be in the ground even before this gets
Well, we should
approved.
do that either way, right? Even if we do the Giza, we still have to. So I would say go ahead.
I would say do the conduit, yeah.
okay,
The conduit has to be done even outside of this, because this can't be approved till next Monday, even if we wanted to do this, right?
Right.
So the conduit has to be done up here, booked by Barker, because they're gonna be paving before this gets approved.
So we have
Am I right? Or we're very close to paving.
right, okay, I believe if Site Logic got the feeling that it's a done deal for next Monday, they would give the go-ahead to do this. If it's an uncertainty, we need to choose the conduit through allowances, or else we're gonna miss our opportunity, and we're gonna cut up new asphalt.
you understand. the allowances and
Yeah,
Right, so in the approved contract, there are certain allowances to, if something comes up, it's already in there. If they don't use them, we get them back, like we're
Yeah,
talking
we're
tonight.
gonna talk about
We're
those,
getting
yeah.
probably $75,000 back in allowances or a credit from other projects.
why we use the allowance. And we decide on the rest of it before the vote.
well, we gotta move, we gotta either say yay or nay, and I'm saying yay.
Yeah,
I say we should do it.
do what?
Conduit.
Do condos, okay.
Conduit, that's all I'm saying to you is conduit.
Anybody
Please.
have any other comments? What do you think?
Yeah.
Then you come.
Good.
What?
Oh, for
What's your-
Conduit.
I think that's the right answer based on, we don't have a concrete decision, which parts of the GISA, if any, we're gonna select. And we need to know tonight, or we miss the opportunity.
Okay, we're good with that.
Even if you change your mind, I'm sure we could still go back. This has to be done regardless.
Right,
If we don't do it, I think we're making a mistake.
I agree.
I'm just curious what's still left. Is, like, I agree with the conduits should be put in while everything's ripped up, but the remaining work, is there anything we have to open up again for?
Before what?
To do the rest of the work if we do it later?
I think
Like, is, I mean, these are just basic questions I have, because I don't know, is there a conduit size that they've come back and they'd be like, oh, this needs to be bigger for the block heater,
They're doing a size that will accommodate anything for the
Okay.
future.
or, okay.
I don't have any concerns about no matter what we do in the future for cameras or electric, it's a 2-inch conduit being proposed to go.
Okay.
Two different 2-inch conduits, one for low voltage, one for higher 120 volt voltage.
And so if we do it now, will they know where the conduit needs to go to do these future projects then too?
They did well better. Excuse me.
Well, because if we go with a different person doing the work, they might come back and say, oh, no, I think your camera line should run this way, or, but they'll just work with whatever we have.
So it's
right?
gonna land in the grass island at the top,
Yeah.
and then in the concrete island that's getting redone anyway. So it's gonna be in a place that has the freedom to make changes or
So-
additions.
So the concrete island is with all ripped up already, right?
And that's
So-
the one that's in
So,
question.
so this is new pay.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is not touch it, and before we pave out here, we wanna put the underground conduits in so that we can get into the island, and once it's underground, we can pave everything, and then the work that has to happen, no matter what it is, no matter who does it, they will start here and work out and not have to touch the pave. They're gonna have to touch the stuff that's in here, but you're gonna touch it anyway. But you're not gonna mess with the new paving you did, no matter what, no matter who comes in, once the conduit's underground.
So the concrete islands are also being,
they will have to be.
Yes.
The block heaters.
Right.
Yes,
If you
because there's
chose GISA,
a-
that concrete island gets totally redone with electric infrastructure redone.
yeah,
Or we do
that's
it in
part of it,
another-
right?
But there's, I mean, some of us have a problem with these because you don't understand the full cost behind it. It's kind of,
I understand that, and I don't know how much like cameras are
yeah, that's.
energy saving there, like,
that's
but,
because
so if the concrete would, replacement and stuff would be part of the electrical work anyway, correct? And then do they, I don't know how the engine block things work, but they're screwed on top, they're sitting on top of all that?
Right, they would do that and then pour the concrete and then finish on top. It's a coordination.
That has to happen no matter what, right? It's
Yeah.
a replace it. So whether we do it now or later, it's just the question is whether we bundle it all now and use that price or bid it out later and maybe get a lower price. Or maybe a higher price.
It comes down to a question of procurement. You wanna do it for GISA now or bid it later?
Or definitely.
Conduit's there.
Yes. Yeah, the conduits go.
Don't touch my conduit.
So the engine block heaters sit on top of the concrete.
That's correct.
So they've gotta pull them off to do all this work anyway,
Correct.
right? And we're gonna put the old ones back on then.
The
we're gonna
new
wait.
ones.
So we're gonna bid that, so that's just all gonna stay off until we get the bid outside of Giza. then
So
for that.
I was gonna say, so, yeah, we've already done all of that
Yeah,
through, and that's what you're seeing with that price.
okay.
If you choose to defer this to later, then you would restart that procurement bidding process. Yeah.
But you don't share the details of what's in
Oh,
that.
sure we do. It's in the Schedule A that Kelly has with the scope of work. And if there's additional questions that you have, or if there's confusion,
They're just
we can,
single costs.
yeah, we can
There's no
certainly
labor,
provide that
there's
detail.
parts, There's no
Just
breakdown.
one.
Right.
We have nothing
Yeah,
to compare.
Yeah, I know
It's
that.
the same
Yeah,
consideration.
I know enough
It's
to-
CISA or bid, which procurement method do we want to choose?
Okay.
It's just a bullet, it's just one. number.
So as long as we're comfortable that if we just do the conduit now,
We can do
it's not going to make any rework later, which it sounds like it will be,
We won't be ruining work that's gonna happen this and next week.
yeah. So my next question was with the, block heaters that have already been removed, were we replacing all of them?
it. They
Was
have-
that the
they
plan?
have been
They're
treated.
still in place.
Ones are there.
Well, they're in
all right.
place, but you can knock it over with your hand, that's the
I know.
condition they're in.
Well, okay, so I thought they had to be taken off the island to do this work, right?
Not
To
the
do
conduit, no.
Not the conduit, okay. All right. Would we be able to get the block heater RFP and all that stuff in time for winter?
To be determined.
And get the,
This choice would be, we do it at a later time.
Mhm.
Ideally, we do it next summer, because to disrupt the whole bus program is challenging. That's why
Yeah.
we were able to find a way to expedite the paving in the next 2 weeks, slightly out of sequence by working with the contractor in coordination, so that we don't disrupt all the bus runs that start 2 weeks from now, and that is currently working out.
So
And we
some
think
school
they'll last another-
programs and extended school year programs start in about 2 weeks.
oh, so there's a very short
The
window.
goal is to get in and out of there before we have to run buses.
You know, the picture you see is all buses parked nice and neatly, they're crammed in the back and crammed in the front right now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So we went with the geyser, would be done in 2 weeks?
And I don't know, would they be able, they wouldn't be able, this wouldn't be till fall, would it?
Right,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
We could bid it out and do it in the fall also. So, right, I'm not as experienced in geyser stuff as you guys are, I appreciate your opinion.
Kelly, if there was any way you could do this, what would be your favorite way to do it? If you had all the money in the world. Like what causes, because I understand the disruption part of it then too, what if we delay something? How do you feel about the block heaters? Like, do they have another winter in them or?
That's what we do basically, if I
Yeah.
need to fix something, we'll fix it to get it by. The reason we're even talking about this, last summer, part of that sidewalk was supposed to be replaced, and we saw that the condition of the block heaters didn't justify replacing the concrete only, that we
Yeah.
stopped, and now we're asking for a credit, which is in this PowerPoint, for 22,000 for that section. That's why we stopped, and now we're trying to capture all of it and do it right.
Okay,
To answer your question, there's pros and cons for both procurement methods.
But be clear, if you go out and you bid it, we have written you a scope of work, but if you're gonna publicly bid it, you're gonna pay an engineer to design it, create drawings, the whole 9 yards, and you're gonna put it on the street for contractors to come and price it to you. So that advantage is lost, and you're gonna have to pay for that when you publicly bid it. It's in there now.
mhm.
That, it's not gonna be in there when you rebid it, just understand that.
Do we know how long of a wait it is to get some of these things, like, are block heaters easy to get? or-
Kelly and SiteLogic spent a good deal of time in the solution they came up with. There's really no long lead items. You're,
Okay.
the longest lead item you're gonna have is finding somebody who has the time to design it for you, to be able to put it on the street. The products, there's nothing wrong, it's receptacles, load centers, it's very, very short lead times for all of the equipment that's needed.
So what do you think are the cons to just doing the conduit now and throwing?
Doing the conduit now, there's no cons.
There's no
That's-
cons.
that's
Well,
the
not
right
that
path.
part, but doing the conduit now only and bidding out the rest of it again, like putting RFPs, what are the cons to that?
It's just a delay of completion of the project. The only other con is we choose to hold Barker and Barker, there's a remobilization cost. But if we're doing another contractor, they will build in a mobilization original cost, so it's probably a wash. Or maybe even a little bit of loss, because they're not gonna give us back the full credit, we say, give us a credit for that. But in the end, if you bid it, you're gonna get the market price at that time. Is the market gonna be higher or lower? I don't know.
And if we bidded it, we'd be looking to do it next year then?
I would say next year, best case scenario, maybe over the Christmas holiday break, because that would be an opportunity with no conflict with buses. So that could be, but I really don't have concerns getting to next summer.
But,
I think that basically tells us the direction we're going. Conduit.
Conduit, yes. Bid, yes.
So there is one more clarifying GISA 10 question. So the fuel oil tank that was part of GISA 9, which is kind of, it is listed in GISA 10, is there any cost associated with the, putting that tank at Bedminster?
No. That's just to clarify that it's not going at Goof. It's going at Bedminster, zero cost.
Okay, let's move on to 2023 prime contractor credit change orders. These are credits back to the district, and the first one is from prime contractor Nice Construction for the work that they were doing, again, at the district support center that we were just talking about. Kelly had mentioned before that they are offering a credit of $22,986 for deleting this sidewalk here, here and here, which is that location we were just talking about because of the district's desire to remove and address the block heater situation. So it's just a credit back to the district. They are offering this, and it's recommended that the district consider this and take the credit for this work. There have been many months, maybe, of negotiation over the price, and we have heard from this contractor, this is kind of their best and final through the discussions that we've had, so we're recommending that the district take this. Questions on this? The second credit from the 2023 work is through BSI Electrical Contractors. This was for work that was done at the Operations Center, and it is a return of $51,195 back to the district for an unused alternate. So we had an alternate within the bid documents to replace conduit and wire from a utility pole to that facility. That conduit and wire did not need to be replaced. So this is now the credit of returning that back to the district.
So that was the actual price of, like, the recording?
Yes.
If you went to the knockoffs and decided.
No, no. Any more questions on this? Okay. Before we get to the facility assessment, any final thoughts on the projects that we just talked about? Okay, we can get into the district-wide facility assessment. So, I'm not really sure how familiar everybody within this committee is with the facility assessment or feasibility study, but it's considered best practice every 5 years to take a comprehensive look at your buildings. And districts will go out and solicit these services and provide that for you. recently, this committee has had conversations looking at things like capital projects, so major building additions or renovations. And SiteLogic was recently tasked with providing a very detailed assessment of your facilities to help kind of organize the facility maintenance needs in consideration with those larger capital projects. So what I would like to explain is that a traditional feasibility study is kind of like a very large 3-ring binder. For districts this size, you could expect to see anywhere from 500 to about 800 pages of documentation. And this information is very useful, but we found that really it has a life expectancy of about 1 to 2 years, sometimes 3 years if you're lucky. Recognizing that there is a need to really kind of carry this information forward, SiteLogic has developed a cloud-based database system that helps facilities, boards, administration look at their buildings a little bit more cohesively, gives you a little bit more accessibility to that data. And the tool that we offer is called MySiteIQ. So what we're able to do is assess your facilities a little bit more efficiently. So what you're seeing on the left-hand side of your screen is actually an example from your plan. So we have spent time documenting your facilities, and one of those examples is here. This is a floor plan, and you see all those orange dots. Every single orange dot represents a 360-degree photo documenting the current condition of that space. So we are very easily able to capture a lot of facility information and detail current building conditions. We're able to add photos, we have added videos to provide context for these asset conditions and establish a foundation of where your facilities are. This is a way for you to start to institutionalize and share out the knowledge and the condition of those facilities. And then you can present those during conversations. If you're talking about a specific area of a school, you can navigate to that photograph. If there's a condition that suddenly came up, you can take a photo, tag it to that site plan, and then you'll have access to it. It's a way for the district to start to manage all of your facilities under one digital roof, because it is a website and you log into it. These are further examples of the plan that we have developed for Penridge School District. On the left-hand side, you can see an example of how we compile all of that data and information. So you're seeing floor plans, you're seeing asset information that's been graded, and you're starting to see those photographs. So this photograph is kind of tied to that little location right there, that mechanical room. Ultimately, the data that we are collecting, assessing, is informing a plan. As you start to look at the conditions of your buildings, you start to understand the sense of urgency some facilities have that allows you to identify projects and put a plan into place. This is an example of what you're seeing here. We're also able to provide estimates for you to capture the cost to either replace or upgrade the conditions within your facilities. These costs can then further be associated with certain funding sources. So we can break out different things like grants. We just submitted a grant with the district, Public School Facility Improvement Grant for LED lighting across the district. We can tie that into the projects that you're looking at, as well as specific plan years. So this will allow the district to plan for instead of react to conditions within your facilities. What this looks like has really been a it's been a long process, and it should be. We started late last year in July with a very, very heavy effort on that data collection. Through November and December, we met with administration and committee leadership just to engage initially and help orient ourselves to conversations that we were having. And then we began in earnest the facility assessment and planning. And here we are today finalizing those priorities. Kelly's been working through a very long list of priorities and projects, but just to help you understand the order of magnitude of the data, you can see here what we've captured. We're talking over 1.5 million square feet of assessments within your facilities. That's just building footprints. And in addition to that, we've included the grounds like playgrounds, ball fields, other site features like playground equipment. That is all housed within this tool. This is over 4,500 photos and videos of those current building conditions. And in addition to that, we have individually identified over 7,000 facility assets. So we're looking at things like air handling units, rooftop units, electrical emergency generators, HVAC terminal equipment, playground equipment, all of those things. And then what Kelly is now able to do is go look at very specific building plans, facility drawings with tagged photo locations of those assets and site features and navigate exactly where he needs to. And administration can do that as well, just to kind of provide that full transparency into your facilities. So that really has led to us identifying about 400 facility maintenance projects over, the course of however many years you'd like to plan for. And next steps for SiteLogic in the district to take are really to get into that higher level prioritization, to address those needs that are kind of rising to the top, that seem to be the most current within the district, and help you plan for whatever your future facility needs are. So next steps just generally are the recommendation for all of the credit change orders that we discussed for 2023, the change orders that were requested by the owner for 2024. In whatever capacity, Amendment 10 would be approved, as well as the testing and inspection services for David Blackmore that complement the paving work. That is all I have for you today. Are there any questions?
Change order documentation is coming, or because they'll be approved next week.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Change order documentation will be coming.
Yeah, Kelly will have that, I think, Wednesday, I think is what we said, yeah.
Any other question from the committee members?
Okay.
Still go for the conduit?
Yeah.
Okay, just to make sure. Thanks, folks, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, summer site work testing.
Really, that's a repeat of the item that was in presentation for David Blackmore. There's a
Okay.
handout there that
No, it's
lists all the
just a break.
details, breakdown of all that information.
Thank you. Capital budget, project budget and costs, 24-25.
Yeah, so, just a handout there for you to show where we're at with our funding at the end of the fiscal year. June 30th, 2023, we had about $13 million. The rest of the summer of 2023 projects paid after July 1st was about $6.3 million. So by assuming the ending balance will be about $6.8 million. At the end of fiscal year June 30th, 2024, hopefully we'll have about $3 million to transfer. Effective July 1st, we will transfer another $6.1 million from the budget. We have $7.5 million lined up for 2024 project expenditures. That will put us at about $8.4 million after everything that we've committed to so far.
And so the debt one continues, you get the $6 million every year.
Sure.
Because you're not paying anymore,
Right.
it goes to, when you're completely paid off, it goes to 12
Yes.
in addition. But you're anticipating $3 million
At the end of this year.
profit every year.
At the end.
Unused funds. But then we don't have much of a plan outside of 26 as far as what we're going to spend.
Yeah, really that-
Spending a lot more than that.
That $9.4 million number was the number from the old plan. That was kind of things that were actually pushed off and not done.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of gathered there. So that's the reason I'm showing that number. We really don't have a plan for the summer of 2025.
Right.
So,
And if I can add, that was part of the request for this My Site IQ, whether it was that product or whichever it was, to have our vendor identify all the high priority needs, almost step or two away from being able to bring something back to the board to have discussions of, here's the things you didn't know that we need to prioritize. Still not there,
Can
but we're close.
Do you think we can get that?
I would say August for sure. And if we were meeting in July, I would say July. I just need to have the time to spend to finish prioritizing. They gave age prioritizations, but that doesn't paint the whole picture. I need to, and put it into big buckets, heating systems, all those other things, so you can decide how we're gonna allocate our money moving forward.
Does the system say, okay, it's an air conditioner to last 6 years?
Yeah,
So
life
it's not
cycle.
just, it's got it.
Starts with life cycle and then evaluation and 5 other pieces of criteria to say, this is a category 5, you need to do it as soon as possible, all the way down to 1.
I was a little, a little confused, like how far have they entered data into that system? They said they did the photographs and the drawings, but did they do things like, this was the year this system was installed, this was the year, like, how much more work do we have to do to make it useful for you? Like how old something is, or?
So there's ratings, and it's, if I could relate it to something like Microsoft Word, everyone uses a word processor, but it does 90% more than what you use it for. That's a good example of the system. I don't know that we would utilize everything in it, but the part that prioritizes assets and projects, that's what we really need to get down to.
Okay.
To identify what are the needs of Penridge, what should the priorities be, and then there's a budget component, how much can we afford per year, staying in the right budget allocation.
So that would be a lot of your time then to go through and like prioritize things.
And I've started, and we're close, it was just handed over to me to say, they've done their part. Now, it's balls in my court to give it the final reprioritization that makes sense for Penridge.
And once we have it, do we have it, or is it like a yearly software thing with them, or like I just?
That's a great question, I don't know. They say we own it, but I don't know the truth of that. We certainly wanna acquire all of the information, one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And through the RFP process we're in now to look at another vendor, they likely won't use the same system and wanna have their own analysis. We're asking for a price for them to do the same analysis. So it's gonna be yet another set of eyes, but as Sean said, we really need to talk about 2025, because I think we're gonna drive what happens in 25, not an incumbent, maybe not SiteLogic. We're gonna have to be the people to decide on that. Maybe we do it very light, but we'll have to make those decisions.
Well, do we have a list of things that need to be done next year?
There were some things that we intended, like Bedminster's fuel tank, for example, controls at West Rock Hill. There are some things that I know are needs, but
Any kitchens?
I believe, especially with our new food service director, that we don't have a kitchen that needs a $1 or $2 million renovation.
You don't?
I'm not sure we need any of those in the
Okay.
future.
Well, I mean, that was, been a big one over the last few years.
Right. And we're,
You have it as budget is what, 9 million next year, but it's just a
That was-
dark road.
That was a number we
Yeah,
had been
fine.
carrying for a few years. with lack of a real number, I've just kept that there.
That's fair. I mean, we have to start somewhere, but I guess you also have to start planning these projects, right?
And there's all
Next
these
summer.
wish list projects, auditoriums, and there's a lot of projects I'm gonna put on the table so we can talk about it and figure out a path forward.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, at least the ballpark cost of each one,
Correct.
And how much money we have for next year, because we know, pretty much know that.
Until the board makes a decision, goes through the RFP process and makes a decision on who that firm will be, whether it's incumbent or it's a new firm, we're kind of just biding our time and, you know, with some exceptions of some things that Kelly knows that we can do and, we can do without an engineer, that we're just kind of floating for a bit.
But don't we have any idea? I mean, considering we're still psychological, don't we have any idea what we're going to use for that?
We do, but like a lot of things, as in the maintenance field of part of what I do, we can keep things going for the next 3 to 5 years until you have a catastrophic failure. We don't want to get there. That's why we proactively plan and replace things. I can keep things going for years, but do we want to get to it's a catastrophic failure? We don't.
If that's where we look to, I thought, to you guys to
Right.
say, well, this is at its end of life. And there's major things that cost a lot of money, and there's minor things that we're not going to get. Just trying to get a handle on what we need as far as capital, so we make sure we're not, right now, you can have a big, according to this, we still have a big balance left over. We wouldn't change too much, right? Based on spending 9 million, but we're nowhere near 9 million.
And if Sean has anything to do with it, we're not spending on
It's
it.
true. Well, I would bring your attention to some of these really large, based on, well, spending only 3 million, which I.
Yeah, once we get our numbers, that'll make a lot of
Definitely
sense.
change.
gonna
But
make
it's
a lot.
nice that there's no $6 million project out there, except for potentially.
We hope not.
Yeah.
Not as a need today. Maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe, but not as a need in the next 3.
Okay. Any other questions? Moving on, the Brevlin Architect proposal.
Yeah, so our next item is, our district utilization study and enrollment projections. Mr. Palmer's here tonight, he's gonna walk through a, presentation he put together, and then we can talk about what, Breslin Architects has, provided us with a, cost to move forward.
So before Mr. Palmer gets started, I think it's very important that we commission a study to really get a handle, on enrollment projections. We have new developments going in, Silverdale, Sellersville, and Ms. Sharino, you're on one of the committees locally, so we're just trying to get a solid handle to help us make solid recommendations to the board on, we're talking about facilities projects and what we need to do moving forward. It also helps us with staffing and making, good forecast predictions for our district. So I commend Mr. Palmer in advance for going through this data here for us to give us a taste of some things, and we'll talk about Breslin Architects.
So, in terms of our enrollment projections, back in 2016, the school district actually contracted with the Pennsylvania Economy League. They conducted a study of demographics, the impact of housing developments that would be coming in, and trends in student enrollment. part of that was to develop a 5 and 10-year projections. This is very typical. 5-year projections typically much more accurate than your 10-year projections. Following that, the district decided to contract with Breslin Architects to conduct a utilization study. The reason was the Economy League showed a dramatic decrease in student enrollment over that 5 to 10 year period. And they wanted to get both an update in those numbers, the double check, and also to look at the capacity of the buildings, the facilities, and to provide some recommendations based on that. And they wanted to kind of look at, what are the options for using our buildings? How would that impact, the way we're using our things? How would that impact us financially and in terms of the district? In addition to that, annually, the Department of Education completes enrollment projections for us. Those are really based upon the current students, because what we do each year, we have to take an October 1st enrollment report. We have to upload that by the end of October. The district collects that data. It's really how they track all of our students. We upload that by school and grade level, by demographics, all that kind of information will go into the system. And then PDE will come back and kind of predict, just taking those students that are currently there and advancing them year to year to see what would happen. So what we did is we kind of looked at this and said, okay, now we're at 2024. How did we do with this? Where are we now? And where might we be going in the future? So I have a few graphs to go through with you in terms of our overall data. So if you take a look, each one of these lines shows data from a particular source. So the PEL, the Pennsylvania Economy League, is the blue line. DI is Decision Insight. That was the company that's supposedly the ultimate guru, the best of the best at looking at this kind of information. The green is PDE's, that's kind of based on our enrollment. And the purple is our actual. So who were the students that we actually had in the district in that time? So you'll see if you go back to 2016, there were 7,328 students in the district, and we currently have 6,287 students. So you'll see that's.
Where is the, what was the other guy? The other one was Breslin, is that?
Breslin is the DI one.
Is the DI?
So the architects themselves they outsourced it to a company called Decision Insight.
Oh, okay, so that's the one we're quoting again. What would they use, this is what's the proposal, is for Breslin.
We did go back to Breslin for that, but DI was actually bought out by a different company. So this is just what was done up until now.
And the PDE one, is that free?
Yep, that's just them taking the students you have right now, moving them forward.
Doesn't take into account.
Doesn't take into account students moving in, doesn't look at housing developments, doesn't look at any of that kind of stuff.
There's no growth data.
It really looks at birth rates.
It did pretty well.
And
But they do it on a year-to-year basis.
Oh,
so every year it's done, so it's gonna be closer.
Oh, that's not, okay. That's an actual.
It's much closer to the actual.
Yeah.
Whereas the red and the blue are really more projections.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you'll see, as we get further out, they should get, less accurate. If we look at them by grade span, so let's take a look at K through 5 first. In elementary, you'll see this is fairly close. There was a prediction that we would have a decline over that time till 2026 is really where they predicted this out to, 2027. So in those grades, we were at 3167. We're currently at 2684. And you'll see we've made a little bit of an increase, that purple line. compared to what DI had predicted, and got closer to what the Economy League had predicted, the blue line. Now, elementary, I will say, is typically harder to predict because they're kids you don't actually have in your school. Those are potential kids that may or may not, be in your district because people move in, people move out. You're really relying on birth rate information and trying to look at where, housing developments are and things like that. But generally, as a population ages, you're going to see a decline in student enrollment without people moving in. In the middle school, 6 to 8, obviously this is the smallest grade span. We went from 1758, we're now down to 1443. And again, this green line that you're looking at, that is the prediction for PDE going out to 2032. They provide that information.
So they do. But do they revise it, or?
They continue to revise it as you go along.
Yeah, so correct there.
Mhm. Yeah, so you'll see we're very, very close to that because they're basing it on what we had already had.
Do we have the PD number from 2017, or what they originally predicted?
I don't know. I have to go way back in the data.
Because that kind of, they don't really do it.
Mm-hmm.
Be interesting. I guess we really can't rely on
Then finally, here is the 9 through 12. So you'll see we were at 2313 back in 2016, and we have fallen to 2160. And you'll see that decline, it was much steeper than what we had predicted by either Decision Insight or the Economy League. And so you'll see what that green line is, what is being predicted by PDE, but that is really based upon the students that we currently have. If you just take the kids we have now, project them out, that's what you're going to get. So if you just move the first grade to second grade, and then the third grade the next year, that's where our numbers are. And you'll see it kind of flattening out there at about 1850 in the 2030 range. So Sean reached out to Breslin and kind of said, they did a very, very comprehensive plan for us back then. It's a huge document. And they no longer work with Decision Insight as their one. They're working with, they went out to several vendors, like a couple of them were too busy to be involved. They were booked years out. Pennsylvania Economy League is very, very well regarded. They work with them, and their proposal is to use those numbers from the Economy League, or use the Economy League to develop those numbers. And the first step in that would be for them to really go back and look at the enrollments from 2016 to 2024. So they would take all of that data to see what had happened during that time. They would then look at all the proposed developments from basically 2018 to now and what's proposed in the future. So they would be reaching out to each of the municipalities. They would request contact information for them. And what they would do is, certainly more detailed what we're looking for than what we're going to get from PDE, which is a number. We're looking for what those impacts would be on individual school zones. So it's not, how's fifth grade going to be? It's going to be, how is Bedminster going to change? How is Seiler going to change in that time? Because the impacts and the construction that's happening here are not the same across the entire district. Clearly, they're based in certain areas. We have apartments going in Dublin. We just have the new ones in Silverdale, proposed 50 townhouses in there. Sellersville has additional townhouses, and we still have the ones up on Old Bethlehem Pike.
East Rock Hill.
East Rock Hill. Those are 200 units going in up there. So the first phase would really be to have the Economy League look at that impact. What was going on? What do we predict is going to happen by school zone? And then Breslin would update their utilization study. And the utilization study is to really look at all the floor, they have all the floor plans of all the buildings, how are we currently using them, what is their current enrollment, class sizes, how are they being used? And then they would update that with information from their previous study. And then they would be able to offer options to us to say, hey, here are things that you can consider, maybe shifting something from here to here. Whatever those options are for us that we would need to consider over the course of the next, really, 10 years. We want to have this outlook so that we can be able to, make decisions now for that future impact.
Will Breslin look at future growth with land availability? In other words, you look at, let's say, Bedminster Township, and you've got X number of acres set aside for housing, farmland, manufacturing, whatever it may be, commercial, retail. That might be something that they want to take a look at, because where you have existing or open land at this point can be a potential to have additional housing or additional apartments, which could increase your enrollment.
And, right now, I think they're gonna have a lot of their hands looking at just the existing building, because there are, let's say, for example, the number that they used in 2016 was 0.3 students per housing unit. So that is for every housing unit, whether it's apartment, townhouse, whatever, that was what they projected across, the whole area to get. Those certainly probably could be changing, people, a newer generation, maybe they want smaller homes, they have different numbers of kids. So it's really, I think they're kind of expert at looking at what those numbers are. And in addition, who's been moving in and out. So they kind of look at trends of, where are the people coming from that are coming into this area? Are they, is people staying local, or is there inflow from a particular source from, far outside of town, or people coming down from?
I'd love to find out how they get that data. That would be pretty difficult to get.
I don't know how they do it, but I know that's a part of it.
Okay.
So looking at demographic trends. So I certainly don't know all of the ins and outs of it. That's why, we have to pay them some money to look at those things. People that are more expert than us. But I think it gives us a really good idea of where we're going to go.
I'm certainly hoping they're gonna touch base with the Bucks County Planning Commission.
I would imagine.
If they don't, they should be slapped on the wrist. The Planning Commission has a plethora of information, and they do know what housing units have gone up, number of units per municipality. They have all that information. They have pretty strong demographic information on the number of people in Bucks County, so they can give you that information as well. So that's a resource that they should be tapping into.
Part of their proposal is the request for information, so we're going to need to provide them with a lot of, the data that we already have, all of our enrollment stuff, everything that we know about in terms of projects that are out there now and have been done in the past few years.
Never understand why we do this, since we're enrollment is shrinking. To make sure we utilize our facilities as much as possible.
It's interesting to see the enrollment shrink, but the number of people in Bucks County increase. The population base is increasing. So you've really got an interesting scenario being built here, is that you got an older population, as stated, so you don't have that growth. But you have a population base in the lower end that's not as.
But we do have a lot of people flooding over from New Jersey, retirees that are coming here for a significant tax benefit, that are not taxing their retirement income. And so it's very, very attractive to people, who are seniors.
We just have to plan how to handle facilities in the future, and it's the only way to do it, and it seems like they're fairly accurate.
Yeah.
As a percentage. So I think it's worthwhile.
No, I think you have to do it. We have no choice. I think
The last one
we
was-
need to understand where we're at, where we're gonna go.
2017 was the last time we did it. I would question the accuracy of the data.
So the costs associated with it are, the Pennsylvania Economy League part for the enrollment study is $25,000, and Breslin Architect fees to take that information and then update the utilization study that they did a number of years ago is $8,400. So the total cost is $33,000 to do this year.
Would they provide recommendations as to which schools would have low, really low, based on elementary schools? So we have a good picture of where the growth.
That was one of the things we stressed we would need.
Yeah.
So I may have missed a few things because I was trying to look up some numbers while we were talking. But I do think as a board, we should look into why we're losing students. And because Quakertown's been maintaining, like, enrichment has been steadily losing over the last 8 years. And staff, I think we need to look into that, not blaming admin at all.
Thank
You know, but I think we need to turn some things around in the district to make it more appealing to parents and families to send their kids to Penridge.
I don't know what I don't look at our homeschool numbers or our private school numbers, but I do look at our charter school numbers. And our charter school numbers, they spiked during COVID.
Yeah.
Everybody's did.
Yeah.
And then they come back down, and they're steady with where they were at before COVID. So we're not losing students at an alarming rate to charter school. That's staying pretty stable. So it, and you know, that's not where people are losing kids there.
So we know the number of kids in the district and where they're going to school.
We know that we have about roughly 130 kids in charter school, and we know they're either in cyber or we know what cyber or brick and mortar charter schools they're in.
We don't know private schools though?
We have that information from transportation, who provide, if the kids are getting transportation from us, we know the kids are attending those other schools.
But that's only the one.
That's only
Oh,
for
they
provide
want
transportation.
So
Well, and that's really how we do our title monies. We look at, who are we sending these to? Are you a participating school? Are you receiving our students? So I send letters to every single private school in the area looking, to see what kids they have from Penridge.
So do we have the information? Like, what if a child, for example, is in middle school and then decides to leave Penridge? Isn't there something they have to fill out, or so don't we should have,
We will have that information.
right? Because, okay.
So, and we have to provide that to them.
And if they're homeschooled.
Because I hear
they
more
have
of that.
to-
I guess I hear more of the transition from middle school and then they don't go to our high school as opposed to elementary. I wonder if that's like,
We can look.
I feel like they usually stay up until like middle school and then I'd be interested to see how many kids do go to private.
I mean, in my experience over the years, there was a huge influx when the Catholic schools started to collapse.
Right.
They really had a huge contraction, and so you had a swell of people coming in, but it's always typically in that 8th grade year where people transition.
Right.
They decide the kids are going to go to high school at Penridge, or they decide, hey, this is our time for college, and typically, I would imagine it's about even kids coming in and going out, but we can find out.
Any other questions, folks?
No, that was great. Thank you.
Should we move this item on for?
I think we should. Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay. Kelly, annual testing for lead.
So there's a handout, whether we project it or not, or you look at it on your laptop. So Pennsylvania updated their Act 39 in 2018 to require all districts in Pennsylvania to do lead water testing for lead in drinking water. So we identified every source in every school that's a potential drinking source. And instead of testing them all at the same time because of the cost, we broke them down into representative samples. We've been doing that for a few years, and this is the result of this year's test. And on the paper, You can see the two red boxes. We have two that were above the actionable level of 15 parts per billion. And typically what we do as a first step, here we have it on the screen, the first step is we will isolate that source and replace the faucet, the water fountain, whatever the source is, and then retest it. Typically it is the faucet that has the lead in it, which was something that was part of brass valves and faucets that were made years ago. They're not allowed to make brass with a lead component any longer. So we found two one at Bedminster and one at Dibler that failed, replaced that bubbler and faucet, retested it, and they passed. We're required to report this to PDE every year so that they can track our results. And the requirement of Act 39 is to do testing or talk about it in a public forum. And we've historically decided we're going to do representative sampling, test them, and be more proactive. We need to do replacements, we will. You can see there's two schools on this list, West Rock Hill and South, that have tested every drinking source. So we haven't continued to retest. We've already tested all the sources, but we're trying to get to that for every school, that we've tested every drinking source. That today, everything we've tested has been remediated or passed, and those are the results for Act 39.
What
So this is
percentage haven't been tested?
I'd say we have about 2 to 3 years left, depending, like high school, for example. They have a huge number compared to other schools just because of square footage. So I'm gonna try to do a catch-up, spend a little bit more money. I'd really like to get all these sources tested because every year we inevitably find one or two that are above the actionable level. I'd like to get through all of them. And we probably spend $5,000 to $6,000 just for what you see there. If I was to do everything, we'd probably spend 20 to 25 to get it done. We're trying to be budget conscious, do the right thing, and get things tested. So I'd say 2 to 3 years will be done.
And then when do you do it again?
Just because it's
Yeah.
lead and nobody wants to.
We could, if that's what the board would like to do. That's one reason. So West Rock Hill, I think had 3 or 4 out of 5, and the board said, we want everything tested because we have concerns. So if you have concerns and you want me to accelerate that, I can certainly look at cost that wasn't budgeted for, is the only reason we don't do it. We budgeted for this sample size, but if the board wants that, I can certainly look into how do we get it done.
Ladies, gentlemen, what are your thoughts?
So I have a question. So once it's done, when do you do it again?
So we don't have to, so we've tested everything. I don't anticipate any changes, because again, so it's from where, we have 3 schools that have well water, and we have way stricter requirements. We have weekly testing requirements at all those schools. The other ones are public water suppliers, and so we don't control what comes into the building, but they have the same requirements what comes in. It's the piping, the valves, the faucets, the drinking fountains that are potential contaminants. Those are the ones that we're trying to weed out. Did that answer your question?
So, for example, like for this Stibler that
Yes.
failed, when was the last time that was
Oh,
checked?
never.
Oh, never.
It's a new requirement.
Right, 2018 is when Pennsylvania changed the Act 39 requirements to do these tests. So there's never been a time, there was never a compliance required, but this is a way to systematically go through and check them all.
I was saying we check them all.
And it not being a multi-year process, and the question that I asked was, should we accelerate that? And just see what the cost would be, because it's an issue.
Right.
Maybe we do something to the effect of saying that we would take all of the faucets and review them all, which you haven't tested at this point, or you do 50% or 25%.
Right, and I have a list for every school. My projection is 2 to 3 years it would take through this quantity of samples to get done. Otherwise, we could try to get them all done in 1 year. It might take 2 rounds to get it done just because of labor, man hours of collecting samples and all
Right,
that.
yep.
If we wanted to accelerate it, get them all done next year, that's what the board's wants. We can,
How does that affect your work schedule and other projects that your people are working on? I mean, how much, there's gotta be a block of time associated with this.
it's a week process, but it's not 8 hours a day. There's a whole flushing process. that's standing for 8 hours and then drawing from a standing sample, collect it,
Yep.
put it together, label it, take it to a lab. We used to have a consultant do this. We decided, why should we pay a consultant for something we can do? So we're saving a couple $1,000s doing it ourselves, but still, we're not near the end. We're a few years away from it, else we won't accelerate.
So it's not just the cost, it's the manpower.
It's a time thing.
It's
So
time,
we
time
have to
effort.
take a look at it.
I can make it happen if that's what the board wants.
Are there schools where we have a more significant concern than others?
I don't think I found one school that regularly fails now. For West Rock Hill, we did, that's why we chose to do that. We had, I think, 4 representative samples out of 5 that were high, and that was red flag, we need to look at more. But
And
this,
South?
it was,
And South was like that too?
no, South, we just, there was a smaller number of drinking sources at South. Like elementary schools, for example, every classroom has a bubble where kids can get a drink. Not so much at middle schools, especially South that is older and didn't have the same kind of fixtures.
What would you like to do, ladies and gentlemen? Proceed as we're going, and it'll take us 2 years
I'll
approximately.
give you an A, B, and C. Proceed as we have, get it done in 1 year, get it done in 2 years.
If we proceed with what we have, how long is that, 3 years?
If we go at this pace now, yes, so 1, 2, or 3, how many years would the board direct that I get it done?
You know, I'd just like to understand how it impacts your manpower. If 1 year is gonna mess up a lot of other things, then I'd like to know that.
I'll say take that out of your equation because it's about kids and drinking water.
I'd say
But
1
I'd
year.
do 1 year.
I
Okay,
would say 1 year.
We can get it done next
get
year.
it done. All right.
No. We're not required, so when we finish the following year, we'll just report out at a meeting, we've sampled every drinking source at all of our schools. If you choose to retest, I'm not sure why we would, but you could choose at that time what you wanna do, but we would be required to have this conversation every year.
Okay,
1 year it is.
1 year it is. Congratulations. Got yourself a whole slew of new work.
Thank you.
Then you have less than.
Let's go to serving hot and cold well replacements at Guth and Sellersville Elementary School. We've got some quotes.
Sure. So, this was kind of a topic that came up earlier. Do we need to do more kitchen renovations? One of the inspirations of why we did some of the renovations is our serving lines were failing, they're so old, we can't get parts. Our new food service director found a way to do repairs of these serving lines, and it is cutting them open. Found a vendor that will cut it open, replace these wells with the lines that we have now. And honestly, looking at the footprint, the spaces are fine for these areas, like South needed a complete renovation. Grass, we had some functionality, had to move some things around. These other 2 schools, they really just need the serving lines to be functional. So the quote that you're looking at replaces the hot wells and cold wells at 2 schools. One's at Guth, and where's our second one? Sellersville?
Sounds
And that's what these quotes are for. I believe they are compliant with the food service procurement numbers. And I think it's a good way to move forward rather than doing large scale renovations. They don't make the serving lines, our new lines are not the same quality as our old lines. I think we are doing justice by repairing what we have when we're able to do that.
Certainly a lot less than bidding options.
Who does the installation?
So Singer is the one selling it, and they have subcontractors. We don't have experience with these. So this is gonna truly be a test run,
Okay.
and I'll be watching to make sure the quality's there. I don't know what we're exactly gonna get, but they're cutting, welding stainless. We're doing the electric component of it in-house with my people. They're providing the equipment and installation.
Okay.
There are some wild cards in the mix. Are we gonna be able to get new electrical lines through the conduit in the ground? But we'll find a way one way or the other. Definitely more cost effective than a huge renovation.
Okay, any other questions, Kelly, on this one? None? Let's move on. Obsolete items. We want to make sure that everyone understands that all the textbooks that are now listed from A to G are now off the list and will be re-examined at a future date.
Not on the textbooks,
The
on
library.
library.
Yes.
Library books.
So if I may, Mr. Cormack, I'd like to make a comment. I would like to table leading any library books right now. There was some concern about a couple of titles that were on the weeding list with respect to being age appropriate. I know that some of those titles were, according to Mackin, which is what the librarian referenced, those books were more appropriate, according to Mackin, for grades 9 through 12. And we need to take a closer look at this. I've asked that we just table, again, weeding library books, and I know we're going to be taking a look at policy 109 in the future, and I think we just need to pump the brakes. Our students are having fun. I think day one of summer break, so there's no harm, no foul, just pumping the brakes, and then we will do an appropriate review moving forward.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so South Middle School, the first item will be tabled or removed from the agenda of the library books. Second item is textbooks. It's been reviewed by Mr. Renner and Sarah Raber, who is the supervisor for language arts, RELA. And those are textbooks in the language arts department to remove or to obsolete. The next school is Central Middle School. We have 3 different lists. The first is some just various equipment that's out of repair and will be thrown away. The second one is novels that will be donated, and they are also RELA, so that's also been reviewed by Sarah Raber, and her signature is on there as well. Same with the next list. Again, these are additional books from the RELA program, reviewed by Sarah Raber and approved for obsoleting. The next list is Daimler, various equipment. One item to be trashed, 2 items to be recycled. The next item is library books, so that one will be removed. We then move to the transportation department, where we have 2 vehicles that we are getting rid of. Both will be, we try to sell them on municipal bid. First one is excessive rust, not respectable, and the second one has a bad rear and excessive body rust. So those 2 vehicles certainly have run their course here, and time to move on. One's in 1998, the other one's in 2007. The next one, see, that's at the high school. We have textbooks. Again, those are from the reading department. And again, Sarah Raber has reviewed those and approved that request as well as the principal. And then the next 2 lists, again, are library reading logs, and we will remove those from the agenda.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Sean? Okay, our next facilities committee meeting is to be determined.
Welcome. We are back for the Finance Committee meeting. I will start with Sean, but before we start, I just wanted to make a little comment about our budget discussion tonight. I mentioned this before, but it is worth repeating. Over the last year, we renegotiated 2 new contracts, which deservedly increased the pay of our employees. We stopped receiving millions of dollars in funding from the federal government for the pandemic, known as ESSER funds. Even with the high inflation over the last few years, our team was able to offer a balanced budget with no tax increase. This is the result of having an excellent team in place in the finance department. I think we're proud of the budget that balances fiscal responsibility with our commitment to educational excellence. Achieving fiscal conservatism while enhancing our programs without cutting essential services is commendable to everybody here who's worked so hard. This budget ensures that we continue to support our students and staff while respecting the financial constraints of the community. Our dedication to maintaining a balanced budget for 8 consecutive years speaks volumes about our commitment to prudent financial management and the well-being of our district. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sean so we can go over our final budget,
Thank you.
which hasn't changed.
Thank you, Mr. Word. Just start down through the agenda. We have a pretty long agenda tonight. It's normal for June. It's one of our biggest months, but it's also one of our most important months. So our first item is we're looking for final approval of the 24-25 general fund budget. The revenues and expenditures are equal, and they total $159,147,064. And with that, we would set the real estate millage rate, tax rate at 135.2555 mils, which is the same as this year and which has been the same for 8 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job.
That's great.
So I would ask for your final approval on that budget. It has not changed since your first approval in May. It is exactly the same.
Sounds good.
Number 2, along with the budget, the resolution each year to levy the other taxes that go along with the budget. We have an earned income tax, which is 1%. Our earned income tax within the district is 1.5%. The other 0.5% goes to the local municipality. We also have a 0.5 real estate tax or transfer tax. We also split that. It's taxed at 2%. 1% goes to the state, 0.5% goes to the school district, and the other 0.5% I believe goes to the county. And then the final tax is $5 local service tax. That tax is actually a $52 tax, and the school district's share of that is $5. The rest of that tax money goes to the local municipalities. So those are our taxes.
What is the local service?
Local services tax, that's the $52 tax, that the rest of it goes to the local municipalities for,
For what?
local, is it emergency services?
No, it's for them. So
Yes.
everybody paid.
It's a payroll deduction tax, right? So it's for everyone who works here.
Yeah. That's right.
The next item, number 3, is the 2024 homestead and farmstead exclusion resolution. So this goes along with the budget. This is the state funding from the state, which comes from the gambling money at the state level. Each year, school districts get a certain amount from the state. This year, what it equates to is each taxpayer who qualifies for the homestead and farmstead will receive $301 deduction from the real estate tax bill. This year, the current year we're in now, it's $253. So our taxpayers will actually see their tax bills our taxpayers who qualify for the homestead farmstead will actually see their tax bills a little bit less than they are this year overall. Number 4 also goes along with the budget, setting the installment dates, which we do each year. Installment dates for real estate tax payments being due to August 31st, October 31st, and December 15th. Those are the same dates each year. and that's for individuals who wish to pay their real estate taxes over 3 payments instead of just the 1 payment. Next item, commitment of funds at the end of the fiscal year for 23-24. We would like to transfer part of the PSERS committed fund balance in the amount of $374,000 to the unassigned fund balance to make that $12,731,000, which maintains it at just shy of 8% of the general fund budget for 24-25. We are limited to 8% of the budget as an unassigned fund balance. The second one is to reset the PSERS amount at $3,250,952, which that includes the reduction of the $374,000 from the line above. And then finally, a statement that any additional capital projects transfer will be determined prior to the completion of the 23-24 audit cycle. So basically what we're saying is when we finish up the audit cycle and figure out what our surplus is at the end of the year, we'll transfer that to capital projects fund, which we've done year over year.
Can you explain what PSERS is?
So PSERS is a committed fund balance that's been here since before I arrived, and it was an amount of money set aside to offset PSERS increases. At one time, PSERS increases were going up considerably fast. We have been able to, and it was really set aside so that if the district wasn't able to keep up with those increases over the years, there was some reserve to put in place. We've been able to build those increases into our budget as we go. So we're actually kind of backing that down and moving it to the,
So there won't be a need for that in the future?
right.
You don't think? But
We
so
don't
it's
think,
coming down
unless-
every year?
Hopefully.
Unless
What is it,
something,
where are you bringing it in?
we're bringing it down each year and transferring it over to the unreserved
So-
fund balance.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so let's hope that there's not.
Go midnight close and
Next item is number 6. These are our renewal quotes for our insurance through our broker Willis Towers, Watson. First item through CM Region as a carrier, property, general liability, crime, auto liability, and boiler and machinery. Cost is $644,983. This one is up a little bit or considerably. It was $572,870. Overall, the package in auto premium, which is the one we're talking about, is up $75,901. The package increase, when I say package, I mean the general liability, the crime, the auto, I'm sorry, without the auto, the crime, the boiler, and the machinery. That piece is up just under $62,000. Building and content values have increased by about $5 million. So each year our appraisals go up. But the main driver here for this increase is that there's a property rate adjustment, which is being driven by the reinsurance market. And that in the reinsurance market is being driven by the severe natural disasters that are occurring, regularly throughout the country. So
here.
not here, but these reinsurance companies, it's hitting everybody. It's hitting
Spread it
everybody.
around.
Yeah, it's spreading it around. So that's what's driving our package increase. The auto increase is up by about $13,000, and that one is being driven by the increased cost of vehicles. We saw that when we went out to bid for our buses, how much our bus costs went up, and also the rising cost of parts to repair vehicles and the labor cost to repair vehicles.
On this, did you bid this out, or is this just a renewal and you're accepting what their increase is without change?
No, our agent
He's shopped.
checked it, he
No.
shopped it, yes. So we are seeing,
That's fine. As long
yeah,
as you
our,
shop.
our package is up, with CM Region is up about 10%. The ones that he shopped with were 14 to 15%. So we're still,
It's still competitive.
yep. Okay, letter B, the commercial umbrella, that one's up a little bit 46.6, compared to 44.6 last year. That one is being driven by a change in statute of limitations, especially for the abuse claims. So they're seeing a lot of claims hit that from abuse claims. It's driving up the umbrella cost. Then the next one is Chubb cyber liability. That one's actually down a little bit. We've done a lot of work to put things in place to protect our cyber on a certain so. And then the next one is Iron Shore pollution liability, down just a little bit. And then the last one is the Zurich, that's our students / sports accident insurance, and that one remains the same. So really our costs are being driven up by that reinsurance market is where the biggest cost drivers. So, the next one, number 7, is the LERTA issue, and we all received information from Mr. Miller late today about 4:25, where he said that he's revised the LERTA resolution and attached it for us. He also spoke with Mr. Cormack. Because West Rockville does not have an existing LERTA district, we will have to do a public hearing before we enact it. So the motion should be to place on the agenda for the board meeting to advertise for a public meeting. The motion should not be to adopt the resolution until the hearing required by the statute is advertised and held.
You're right.
Makes sense to
That's
you?
your understanding?
That makes sense to you?
Yeah, yeah.
So we're just putting it on the agenda to pass for having a public meeting. Who sets that up?
We will have to talk to Mr. Miller about that. This is as far as we got.
Yeah.
So what happens at the public meeting?
It, basically, you review the project, the public has time frame to comment on the project, and the board will then vote on whether they approve it or not. But it's an actual, you have to have a public hearing that presents the project to the community. You gotta look at it, they can talk about it, ask questions.
Sure.
That's how it goes.
But we still get to vote on it, whatever. The meeting doesn't decide whether we vote.
No.
It's just an informational.
Well, no, you've got you've gotta have you've gotta do that.
Gotta do the hearing, right?
Yeah, the hearing. So, I mean, I'm assuming, I'll talk to Miller about it, we can approve it, but I think we have to have the resolution. I think he wants the resolution first
Yeah,
before we approve it.
right.
He wants a motion to have on the board this month to have a public hearing.
Right.
So that's gonna delay
It's not a delay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the-
We are going in front of, Durstein's going in front of West Rockville Township on the 19th.
So I guess either the school district or West Rockville has to do this.
One or the other.
One or the
Okay.
other. What is your recommendation? Is it the school district that should
Let's,
do that? or
let's hit the
town?
school district to do it.
What's that?
Let the school district do it.
the.
Want the township?
Yeah, it's their township.
I'll have to talk to Lipcott.
I don't know.
Alright.
I don't know anything about one township.
Until that first list.
Yeah,
Or then it's list.
yeah, because normally if they had an agreement, we would just pass it right away.
So we would piggyback on it, right?
Right.
That's correct.
So they might come up again from that.
Can you just remind me again, the benefit to the district for alert, I know a lot of emails and just seem to be caught up on it again though. What's the benefit to the district for doing this?
The district doesn't lose any money
Okay,
from a standpoint of taxes, because all the taxes that the ground currently raises stays in place, never leaves. It's the increase to the improvement to the property that's not taxed.
Whether
And-
it gets built or not.
Yeah.
Right, that's the big deal.
If let's say tomorrow we approve it, everything goes through and Durstein says, I'm not gonna build on that property, I can't do it for whatever reason, you don't lose any tax dollars, because the original landowner is still gonna pay real estate taxes on the property. in Durstein's case, we did a review of the project, a couple different agencies in the county, we looked at different loan programs, we looked at different, we looked at TIF financing, went through the whole litany. He doesn't qualify for any of the state programs. So you have PETA, Pennsylvania Industrial Development Authority, which is a land and building program, but his operation is gonna be warehouse distribution. Doesn't qualify under the PETA program. So, and plus the fact that his project cost is gonna be over $15 million. So PETA doesn't really fit into place, because it only can go up to $2.25 million. So PETA was out, so financing programs were not viable. So we started looking at other programs. Really, the only thing that made sense from an incentive standpoint was looking at LERTA. So it's a 10-year program. It increases the taxes increase 10% each year until the 10th year.
So when the building's developed, it's obviously worth significantly a lot more in taxes than if it were left vacant. So there's an incentive to, the land's not worth much, you put $15 million in it, of course, then you get a lot more tax dollars from it.
But it sounds like the financing becomes an issue if you can't get the tax.
And he has to spend it all up front, and we're giving him a break to encourage him to, over that 10 years, we're breaking taxes to help him out.
And again,
Then we get it forever.
it's only real estate taxes, there's no other tax involved, just the real estate.
Plus then it could bring earned income tax.
Yes. Employees that live.
That could also.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, obviously bringing business in is helpful for the district regardless, it was just,
So the question really is, if we don't get this, does he go somewhere else? Maybe, and build it another township, then we get $0 extra dollars. If we encourage him when he comes, builds, then we get that recurring, but we give up something in the interim as an incentive.
but he already owns the land.
No, he does not own the ground.
Okay,
He's still in the negotiation period.
right.
So, I mean, I think it's a good idea just because it encourages development, encourages, and we want to be business friendly, and we're still going to make a lot more on taxes if there's a building in place versus if there isn't.
Mhm, yeah, I understand that too.
And you really have no impact on the school district. Because again, you have no children coming out of that facility that you have to take care of.
And yeah, I mean, we've talked about this, like bringing business into the district is a wonderful benefit to us. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. And so thank you for saying it, because I'm remembering more about it. I think I just haven't looked at it in a while, so.
If you have any other questions, call me.
Thank you.
I think we're in agreement with the letters to move forward. We have to start with this meeting.
All right, so we'll move on it with,
Put it on.
we'll do an approval, and then we'll have West Rock Hill do the resolution.
Do we have to announce when the hearing is though?
Well, that's up to them.
If they're gonna do the hearings,
They-
it's their
Oh, so
responsibility.
then we don't even have to announce it then?
Because it's I don't know traditionally how that would work, but I don't think it's something the schools should run, because it's development in the township. They should be.
Right, even if we don't run
They
it,
still
I
need
mean,
to
do we
do
still
building
have to
permits,
announce
all
it?
of the things, so.
I think we would do, I think if, I'm guessing, that if West Rockville does the hearing and approves the LRTA, then we would just approve the LRTA resolution and piggyback it.
That's correct.
Right.
Yep.
But I think we would have to wait for them.
That's, we're gonna have to wait at
We're
this
gonna
point.
have to wait for them.
Right.
Okay.
Does West Rockville have to approve the LRTA too?
No, they have to approve
Just,
it,
or they
approve
have
it, and then do their,
to?
right.
Okay, well, if they have to approve it, there's no sense in us doing it. Because once they approve it, we will approve too.
So it shouldn't be on the agenda then.
Does the county have to approve it also?
They will be next. They'll be the last.
All
I've
three?
talked to the county commissioners, specifically, they wanna see the township or school district first, they're always the last to approve it.
So all three have to approve it?
No, you can have 2 out of 3.
Oh, okay.
So you could literally have the school district as well as the township,
Okay,
or the school district and the county.
okay, but all three have to actually vote on
Or if they can vote, they can still reject it.
Right, one of them.
One of them can.
Okay.
But the key is, if you don't have a school district, you don't have a program. Tax base, okay? Look at the millage rate
Mhm.
from the school district standpoint versus the township or the county. It's the
Okay.
largest component.
Uh,
If you don't have them, then you don't have a
Can
learner
we-
program.
approve that based on them doing the public meeting? Do we have to wait for that to approve it? That's
I
what
think
the
he
village
said
had.
that I thought even if we're holding it or not, at our next meeting, we do have to say whether we're holding it or the township, this public hearing. We don't? I thought,
No, we don't have to do that. What we have to do is, well, right now, the way we're gonna position this is look at West Rock Hill Township. They'll approve it with a public hearing,
Okay.
okay? And then it goes to us, we approve it, then it goes to the county,
That's
the county approves it.
Oh, wait. How do we communicate that to West Rock?
I told you I'll call them.
You call, okay. You do have a contact.
Yep.
Okay. That's a shame.
The next item is number 8. This is a list of contracts we have. First is Valley Forge Educational Services. This is their extended school year program for this summer. Cost is $8,433. The second one again is Valley Forge. This is educational services for next school year. Cost for the tuition for the student is $85,000. The next 4 are Learn Well contracts. Again, these are our students who are in medical facilities that are educated, and those services are provided for by Learn Well. G is a transportation contract for the rest of the 23-24 school year. I believe started in the middle of May. It ran through the end of the school year, which ended last week, but this is kind of a catch-up contract. This is a situation where we could not, there was a settlement and a placement for a student, and we weren't able to provide the transportation, nor was the intermediate unit able to provide the transportation in that quick of a turnaround. So the parent agreed to do it for the rest of the year. To putting this in place, and just for the IRS mileage rate is the fee, and then for next year we'll hopefully have transportation in place for the student. That's the goal. The next one, general healthcare resources. This is a renewal for nurses and para staffing. Whenever we're not able to find nurses or paras. The next is Judge Healthcare. Again, a renewal of a contract to provide teaching assistance, personal care and teaching assistance to the district. Again, where we're unable to find employees. J is a renewal of Dr. Warner. He reviews our IEPs and our health-related services. His costs are $175 per hour, and that's the same as the current year. Then we have Dr. Davis. He's our school district physician. He does student and bus driver physical exams, and he also has a stipend for / retainer fee of $4,750. His costs are also $85 per bus driver physical and $75 per student visit. Next one is Dr. Lewis. This is our dental dentist. He provides student dental exams. The cost is $35 per hour and no change from Dr. Lewis. The next, Grandview Hospital, Upper Bucks Orthopedics. They provide the medical coverage for our football games here at the stadium. Cost is $150 per home football game, no change from the current year. Next one, Levy Bus Company, they do our third-party testing for our CDL licensing, so we are able to train in-house, and then we send the folks out of the house to do the actual testing. $180 per test, up a little bit from this year, which was $173. Next one, crowd pleasers, DJ services. This is for North Middle School. I believe this is for 4 or 5 events at North Middle School for the DJ, for their dancers. Student paid. Next one, Music Theater International. This is the high school fall play. Cost is $2,115, and that's also student paid. And then we have the IU. This is for our land services. $27,413 annual cost, 6-year contract for the RWAN services through the IU, and that is a renewal. They've been providing that service for many years for all the districts in the county. Next is Johnson Controls. This is a renewal of our HVAC and controls annual contracts for all the district's buildings. Annual cost about $168,589, up from $154,907.
Is that a maintenance contract?
So it's all the large chillers throughout all of our air-conditioned buildings and the building automation controls, and a block of hours locked in at a preferred rate. So when we need service, it's kind of a prepaid service to use as needed.
Yeah, if you don't have a contract, it's much more expensive.
Then the last contract we have is Scenario Learning, also known as Vector Solutions. This is our special education course library for $74.04. We actually have a price reduction of about $1,500 from the current year. So those are special education training, our special education training library. So number 9, these are a number of bids that we've received. A is for our technology education supplies. We have 3 vendors. B is our metal shop supplies, 2 vendors that won bids. C, our wood shop supplies, 2 vendors that won bids. D, lumber supplies, 3 vendors that won bids. E is art supplies.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, lumber supplies?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they so 204? This is the same thing they're all bidding on, right? So one's 214 and one's bidding 9,000.
So what you're seeing there, I'm sorry, Mr. Rose, I should have explained it, are the winning bidders. So of the total, of all the items, that Forest County Woods won.
So you already went, these are just the winners.
These are the winners,
Okay.
yeah. All the items, if you want to look at the detail, you can see all of the items, and then they'd be highlighted. So I'm just giving you the winners here.
Are they all low, did you pick all low cost?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because it's just.
E is art supplies. We have 3 winning bidders there. I'm sorry, a lot more bidders,
Yeah.
because they go to the next page. 10 winning bidders there. And then music instruments is letter F. We have 5 winning bidders for our music instrument bids this year. And then the letter G is we piggyback onto the IU bid for recap tire, new tires and recap tires. And you can see the results there. So that's what we have for bids at this point. Number 10, these are all what we have so far from the high school for our student activity accounts. These are carryovers, renewals with carryover money, and I don't know if we have any new ones on there or not. And then we also have a request under Q to close the club. So each year, the clubs have to make a determination if they're going to continue, they want to carry their money over, or if they're going to close the club, and the board has to give blessing and those things. And we have a number of those at the high school. We also have some at each middle school, but this is what we have back so far. And
So there'll be other.
yeah, there'll be some other ones.
It's just not.
Yeah, they kind of trickle in, so whatever we get in the future, we'll bring to you in August. 11 is our bank depositories for next fiscal year, and these are the exact same bank depositories that we've had in place for a number of years. Some of these we use quite heavily, some very, very small amounts. So for example, our primary local depository is Q&B Bank. and they have a number of bank locations that we can, right here in town, that we can get to quite easily to get our deposits of cash and checks. And then much, if not all, of our state money comes into the Pennsylvania School District Liquid Asset Fund, and also some comes into the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust. And then we will move that money, invest that money, and then move that money into the QMB account as we need it.
So all the extra money is earning whatever it is.
Yes.
What kind of, what are you earning?
We're in the 5 to 5.5 range. It's very, in various lengths of time. We put together a cash flow at the beginning of every fiscal year and work through that with Pennsylvania School District Liquid Asset Fund to develop a investment strategy for the entire fiscal year, and then we invest the money as throughout the year.
How is the money protected?
It's all protected, yes, it's all 100% protected.
Protected, as opposed to
Yes, it all falls under the required school, the investments required under the school code.
Okay.
Yes.
so they're all backed by
Mhm.
who?
They're all backed by the liquid asset fund. Is that fair?
Yeah, there's, under FDIC insurance only goes up to a certain amount, but then a lot of the other stuff is collateralized, so, essentially the liquid asset fund is holding collateral on behalf of the district to ensure that it's insured, if something were to occur, there's some collateral that they're holding on to.
Okay. All right. And the last, or number 13 is, we ask you at the, June of every year to allow us to continue paying bills, and keep things moving, in the business office, because we don't meet again with you until August. And, so we request your permission to keep paying bills on time and not, get penalties, things like that.
So in a normal month, you get approval of a list on the board meeting?
Yeah, each month you approve everything that we spend, or every bill that we pay. Now, some of those do go out before you see them, because there are some things we have to pay by a certain time, or we could get penalties or fees. We also have electric bills, utility, the type of stuff that happens, it's gotta be.
So we like approve something after it's paid, even during?
Yes,
That makes sense. We're just giving you an extra month.
yes, yeah. Just making sure that you guys are comfortable with the fact that we continue operating when we go to one public. Okay? And the last item is lunch prices and breakfast prices for next year. We're gonna keep them at the same rates they are this year. So there's no change there.
And free breakfast still, too?
Yes.
So I do have a question, but it's back a little bit. When it comes to the high school musical and the play, how do we determine how much is student paid versus where the district helps?
So the student musical and plays are 100% funded via the money from the ticket sales,
Okay.
with the exception of the EDRs for the folks the staff members that are in charge. That's paid by the general fund, so the school district pays the EDR. So just like a football coach or whatever, they have an amount that they're paid, it's in the teacher's contract, they get that comes from the school district. All the rest of the costs are paid for from the ticket sales.
And the ticket sales cover
Yeah,
it?
they cover it.
So like they have to pay for the rights for the next year's
Yes.
play?
Yes,
And
and
so that's-
stage setups, and all stage setups and all that stuff, and then, special lighting cost you.
Do they have a budget that they, or how do you know? They don't know, you just track it or?
Yes.
Oh,
We have an account that it's in, yes.
So the sales from last year will pay for
or should we do that for sports?
adjourned.